February 1945. Camp 174, Yorkshire, England. A bitter wind sweeps across the rolling moors, carrying the scent of damp earth and distant coal smoke from nearby villages. Inside a wooden barrack hut, the air is thick with the musty odor of wool blankets and unwashed uniforms, punctuated by the faint crackle of a small stove fighting against the chill. A young German prisoner, his face gaunt from months of uncertainty, sits at a rough-hewn table under the dim glow of a single bulb. A British guard, his breath visible in the cold, places a stack of crisp white paper before him, real stationery, smooth and unmarked, not the ragged scraps or recycled newsprint of wartime Germany. The prisoner's hands tremble as he touches it, his eyes welling with tears that spill silently onto the surface, blurring the first words he pens to his family after so long a silence. This moment, seemingly small amid the vast machinery of war, encapsulated the profound clash between expectation and reality for thousands of German captives in British hands. By early 1945, the Allied advance had swelled the number of German prisoners in Britain to over 400,000, many captured in the wake of D-Day and the subsequent push through France. These men, drawn from the Wehrmacht's ranks, infantrymen, Luftwaffe pilots, U-boat crews, had been indoctrinated with Nazi propaganda portraying the British as ruthless imperialists who would subject them to torture, starvation, and isolation. Yet in camps scattered across the English countryside, from Yorkshire to Devon, they encountered a system governed by the Geneva Convention of 1929, which mandated humane treatment, regular mail privileges, and basic provisions. This allowance to write home on proper paper was no mere formality. It was a lifeline that pierced the veil of propaganda, revealing the stability and resources of a democratic society still functioning amid total war. Historical records from the Imperial War Museum document how such acts of regulated kindness disrupted the ideological armor of the Third Reich, forcing prisoners to confront the lies they had been fed about their enemies. The emotional chasm was vast. German soldiers hardened by years on the Eastern Front or in North Africa anticipated brutality upon surrender. Captured Luftwaffe ace Franz von Wehr, who briefly escaped a British camp before recapture, recalled in his post-war accounts the surprise at being offered tea and cigarettes immediately after interrogation, expecting instead beatings or worse. Propaganda films and leaflets had warned of British terror camps, where prisoners would be denied contact with home, left to rot in silence as punishment for the Reich's aggressions. One U-boat survivor, Otto Kretzmer, the highest-scoring submarine commander before his capture in 1941, later wrote of his initial dread. "We believed we would be cut off from the world, our families left to wonder if we lived or died." Instead, they found themselves in orderly compounds with access to censored but permitted correspondence, up to 2 letters and 4 postcards per month, as stipulated by Geneva Protocols. The paper provided was of a quality scarce in Germany by 1944, where shortages had reduced civilian writing materials to thin, gray pulp riddled with impurities, often salvaged from bombed-out factories. In Britain, the stationery was clean, substantial, sourced from mills still operational despite rationing. When handed these sheets, many prisoners paused, fingers tracing the texture, a simple act that evoked pre-war normalcy. Tears came unbidden, not just from relief at communication, but from the stark contrast. Expectation of degradation met with unexpected dignity. One anonymous POW diary preserved in the National Archives at Kew notes, "Today, paper, real paper, not the rubbish we knew. I wept like a child, for it meant I could tell Mother I am alive, and perhaps she could reply." Weaving through these experiences were factual threads of wartime logistics and policy. Britain, strained by U-boat blockades and aerial bombardment, adhered strictly to international law, partly to encourage enemy surrenders, and partly to maintain moral high ground. By 1944, the War Office oversaw 1,050 POW camps and hostels, with prisoners laboring on farms to offset food shortages, harvesting 21 million tons of potatoes and grains between 1941 and 1948, according to official reports. Mail was routed through the International Red Cross in Geneva, with British censors scanning for intelligence but allowing personal sentiments to pass. Data from the British Red Cross reveals that over 10 million letters were exchanged between German POWs in their homeland during the war, a volume that underscored the Allies' commitment to humanity even as bombs fell on Coventry and London. Quotes from prisoners themselves illuminate the shock. A Wehrmacht sergeant captured at Arnhem in September 1944 confided in a post-war interview archived by the BBC. "We were told the English would chain us, starve us, but they gave us paper, ink, and time to write. It was as if we were guests, not enemies." Another, a former Hitler Youth member held in a Scottish camp, recalled the moment. The guard said, "Write to your Frau." I stared at the blank sheet, white, unblemished, and thought of the scraps we used back home. My hands shook, tears fell. What kind of war was this? Amid this narrative of contrast, a recurring symbol emerged in the form of the Hershey chocolate bar, tucked into Red Cross parcels that arrived sporadically but reliably in the camps. This modest confection, mass-produced in Pennsylvania and shipped across the Atlantic via Lend-Lease convoys, represented the unyielding abundance of American democracy, a land untouched by invasion, its factories churning out not just weapons but everyday luxuries that spoke of freedom's fruits. Prisoners accustomed to ersatz cocoa made from acorns in ration-starved Germany unwrapped these bars with reverence. The smooth, milky sweetness melted on tongues parched by years of deprivation, evoking a world where resources flowed not from conquest, but from industrial might and egalitarian ideals. Historical evidence from Red Cross logs shows that each parcel, weighing about 10 pounds, contained items like cheese, jam, and that iconic chocolate, distributed to supplement the 2,500-calorie daily rations provided by the British. One parcel per prisoner every 2 weeks, as per 1944 directives, meant the Hershey bar became a ritual. Shared in huts, savored slowly, its wrapper sometimes saved as a talisman. It contrasted sharply with the ideological scarcity of the Reich, where such treats were reserved for the elite. A captured officer's letter, intercepted and filed in War Office records, mused, "The Americans sent chocolate even to us, their foes. What abundance must they have to waste it on prisoners?" This symbol threaded through daily life, amplifying the emotional rift. Expecting meager gruel, prisoners found camp meals, boiled vegetables, tinned meat, and the occasional fish and chips on Fridays, augmented by these parcels. The Hershey bar's arrival often coincided with mail days, heightening the poignancy. Men who had braced for endless hunger bit into the chocolate, its richness stirring memories of lost peacetime, only to be followed by the allowance to write on that pristine paper. The contrast bred introspection. What had they fought for if the enemy could afford such generosity? Records from camp re-education programs initiated in 1944 under the Political Warfare Executive note increased attendance at lectures on democracy after parcel distributions, with prisoners debating how American production, over 300,000 aircraft and 2 million tons of food aid, stemmed from a system that valued individual liberty over totalitarian control. The transformation was gradual but profound. Initially defiant, many prisoners shed their Nazi indoctrination through these encounters. The act of writing on real paper, flavored by the lingering taste of Hershey chocolate, chipped away at perceptions of Allied barbarism. Ideologically, it shifted views from superiority to doubt. One former SS man, repatriated in 1947 and interviewed for a University of London study, admitted, "The paper, the chocolate, they showed me the Reich's lies. We were told America was weak, decadent, but their abundance proved otherwise." Camp reports from 1945 indicate a 30% drop in escape attempts post-D-Day, attributed to improved morale from mail and parcels. Emotionally, the weeping over paper marked a breaking point. release from isolation mingled with grief for a lost cause. As one POW reflected in a smuggled diary, "I cried not for home alone, but for the world we had misunderstood." This ideological pivot extended beyond individuals. Post-war, some 25,000 German POWs chose to remain in Britain, marrying locals and integrating, their perceptions forever altered by these symbols of democratic resilience. Yet the Hershey bar's deeper resonance lay in its quiet defiance of scarcity's grip. In huts where men huddled against the Yorkshire cold, unwrapping that chocolate became a meditative act, its sweetness a reminder that freedom nurtures excess where tyranny breeds want. Prisoners traded bites for stories, the bar passing hand to hand, fostering unlikely bonds with guards who sometimes shared their own rations. By war's end, as VE Day fireworks lit the skies, many clutched empty wrappers, symbols of a transformed worldview. The emotional weight settled. What began as tears over paper evolved into a reevaluation of ideology, the chocolate's abundance mirroring the democratic ethos that had outlasted the Reich. In the epilogue of this chapter in Human Endurance, the simple allowance to write on real paper, underscored by the Hershey bar's enduring presence, links to a larger truth about freedom and abundance. In the shadow of totalitarianism, where resources were hoarded and humanity rationed, democracy's light shone through in these gestures, paper for thoughts, chocolate for sustenance, proving that true ideology thrives not in conquest, but in the generous spirit that rebuilds even its enemies. The tears shed in that Yorkshire hut were not of defeat alone, but of awakening, to a world where abundance flows from liberty and ideology bends toward compassion, ensuring that even in war's darkest hour, the human soul finds its way home on wings of unexpected grace.